It's starting in a few minutes.
Now?
Yeah.
My name is Gerardo. Nice to meet you.
And my name is very close to yours.
I noticed that, yes, I've also been mistaken for another.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I was mistaken for you.
That's the trick.
Stuff they say about it, especially at Starbucks.
That would explain it.
Excuse me.
He's one of someone who's attending our animal welfare specialist presenting actually. She's actually in the center and he was video on phone. Yeah, but I'm not sure what time she's presenting, but she I don't believe so. Yeah. And she just started with us a couple months ago. She's a PhD. Just finished her PhD from a year ago. It's really been a really good job. I wish she would
Well, my name is Gerardo. Thank you. Nice to meet you. So, I'm actually the first one today. I'm here with my
So good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to join us for this special Lunch and Learn. We're thrilled for you to be here. Thank you so much for your past support and your interest in the work that we're doing. And we're very excited to have a special guest here from Costa Rica, Gerardo Huertas, who's our Regional Disaster Operations Director for Latin America. And Gerardo is a wealth of knowledge on animal welfare and the organization. He's been with the organization for more than 30 years. Was actually hired by the famous John Walsh, who started our disaster relief and rescue initiatives. And Gerardo has hands-on experience working in the field and saving the animals, and I think often even putting himself in harm's way in order to save the animals. And I'm sure if you have some time, you have some wonderful stories to tell, but we're pleased that he's going to give us an update on some of the programs in Latin America, including our initiatives to stop the illegal hunting of the Amazon river dolphins, an update on some of our disaster preparedness efforts in Latin America, as well as an update on some recent disaster relief projects in Cape Verde. For example, there was a volcano that erupted and his team went and helped save some animals, and an update on, I think, a recent disaster, a flood in Chile just happened recently. So please welcome Gerardo.
Thank you. Hello, and you should keep eating. Bon appetit. And I'm sorry I didn't say hello to you, Martha, Carla, and Stephanie. We will do that as soon as you finish your sandwich. I'm here to talk to you about a couple of pieces of work we do in Latin America and the Caribbean. My colleagues are working really hard, and have been for the last year or so, to protect the pink dolphin of the Amazon. This is a really extraordinary animal, and I was telling one of you earlier that this particular dolphin can turn his head around, unlike the dolphins in the ocean. As you can see, this guy is looking at you, and his body is going the other way. And that is an important feature for animals that live in the mangrove roots, because they can move inside, look for what they're eating. Probably their sonar is going to have to work double extra there, double hours, because the waters are a bit muddy usually. But it's a really intelligent animal. It suffers from the fact that people in the Amazon in the past used to say that every time there is a pregnant girl and they cannot find the father, it would be one of these guys who did it. So there you go. But it's the largest dolphin in the world, river dolphin. and it's present in the Amazon in 7 countries. Basically, the Amazon is present in 7 countries in South America, like Chile, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Brazil. And the problem we are seeing, or we uncovered, is that people hunt them, chop them to pieces, and use them as bait to catch a fish to sell in Brazil and in Colombia. And that not only is illegal now, thanks to our initial efforts, but also extremely cruel. And the problem is that as soon as you make something illegal, it tries or tends to go under the radar. And that's what we're working on. Most of that fish, called piracatinga, doesn't really matter, it's a big fish, goes to, or used to go to Brazil. It doesn't now because it's illegal. And it's going to Colombia in the big numbers, and I'm talking thousands of tons a year. And for them to be able to do that, they have to catch a lot of these dolphins.
How big are they? How big
The
is
dolphins?
Yeah. How many feet?
Less than 3 meters. I would have to talk to you in feet, in meters.
I see.
So about
It's much
6 or
smaller
7.
than-
No, 6 or 7.
This is about 9 feet.
Sorry? 9.
And Colombia is still capturing a lot of, receiving a lot of this fish, and they used it under different names. Once you see a fillet of fish, it's really hard to understand or to figure where it's coming from. And we're working into that direction. And obviously, we would need to develop humane and sustainable solutions for those fishermen and those communities in the Amazon that used to do that, to catch these guys. So up to now, we have been successful in rising the public opinion in Latin America to the point in which we have signed off 165,000 guardians of the Boto. Boto is the name the pink dolphin is known for in Brazil. And a good number of those 165 come from America. This is an online petition, an online enlisting. We hope that with that, the government of Brazil already caved in, and now Colombia is going to take action into this. And like I was saying, humane and sustainable alternatives for those communities that used to hunt the Boto. Here's a few numbers of our campaign. It's all digital. It's fairly new, and it's reached over 500,000 fans in Facebook, and also the signatures go close to the fishing sessions, which is important for the pressure we need to put on the dolphins. And like I was saying, these signatures keep growing, and I'm probably venturing what I want to see, but I think we are about a month away, or 2 at the most, to convince the Colombian government to ban the fish, the piracatinga, initially, and to set up controls at the border in order to stop this, because this amounts of fish are first unsustainable, and second are coming in through the Colombian border, which happens to be very, very lax or porous. It's a good story as it has been developing. We believe, however, that we need to hurry, because the calculations are that 10% of the population of the pink dolphin is being taken every year for this purpose. Here's one of my colleagues working with teachers in these communities I was telling you about on education projects, how to teach conservation, how to teach alternatives in the schools, and how to train the teachers. That's probably most important because of the domino effect that can have. And we're also working on a game that includes the pink dolphin in it for children, and in a way trying to get it from that status of the owner or the father of that many kids without fathers, and the use they have for bait on him. It's all a part of our work to change the minds of those people who used to use it. And we're trying to develop the markets for various other things like cassava flour, the fruit called acai, and maybe easier ways or more humane ways to do fishing of the piracatinga in Brazil. That's all I have to say about the pink dolphin, probably because I don't know that much. My colleagues that practically live in the Amazon and in Colombia are really strong, and we believe that this year it's going to probably see the end of at least the importation of that fish in Colombia. I want to talk to you something we were discussing again earlier over there is, and it's not about hands-on work, but we have the most hopes for this piece of work, and it's basically developing models that other countries in the world can follow to protect animals from disasters, and that's what my team does. And that's what we do. The World Animal Protection used to do hands-on work all the time. I mean, we were to respond to earthquakes, to floods, to forest fires. In the past, we went, and we still may go, into after-war situations and post-conflict situations, such as Afghanistan or Kosovo or the civil war in Nicaragua, to help the animals that were left behind. But now we have still kept doing that and developed a strategic side of this work, basically looking for preparedness. And the idea is that how many animals can we really reach with our teams, realistically, and how many can the government reach if they or protect or save from being exposed to disasters? And the difference in numbers are huge. And this particular work that in which we are entering the fourth year and hopefully the end of this, it's a work with the government of Costa Rica to develop a fund. This girl's name is Melissa, and this puppy here is called Bolt. Melissa brought Bolt, her puppy, to us, to our teams during one of the floods that Costa Rica suffers every year. You might think, well, where's the flood over there? Flash floods do that. They destroy a lot of things and they disappear. And it's just based on the fact that there are not enough drainages or not enough planning, and people are allowed to build in the wrong places. So exposure, according to the UN recently, is, or the way we're developing our societies is even much more dangerous than all the hazards combined, which means all the earthquakes, all the tsunamis, all the floods, and all the hurricanes. They are nothing compared to the wrong ways we are developing. Anyway, we were lucky, and Bob was lucky to meet us, and we obviously worked on Bolt, so he wouldn't, not only had, once he survived the first wave, he wouldn't be caught by parvovirus or by distemper or something. You know that is very easy to happen when the environment is humid and damp, and they end up exposed to more water or food that is wet. But like Bolt, there are tens of thousands of animals, probably millions, that suffer in Latin America from floods. Here is one of the pieces of work that we're most hopeful for. This guy's name is Thunder, and he's really well known in Costa Rica and now in Mexico. And this little graphic here shows you what we did with Thunder. Thunder is an ad, a television ad you're going to see in a minute, talking about preparedness, family preparedness, and how should they include their pets. And that is important because in Latin America, most people are moving to the cities, as you might have heard. It's so bad. I mean, the situation is so bad. If you went to Sao Paulo, you would think this is a village. I mean, the traffic is demonic there. But there are a lot of animals live in cities, and they're not prepared. People think that they will be able to take their pets with them, but the gap between thinking and doing it is huge. And the metrics we are collecting and researching are crucial to convince governments. Anyway, this is 2012, and this is the research we did on pet owners that might have a thunder or a cat, and we subjected them through 4 categories of preparedness. Do they have an ID with them? So if they get lost, they can get reunited back to their owners. Are they vaccinated? If you live in an apartment building, you have a transport cage in case you're evacuated, that you're going to put your animal in there, or is he going to start biting people out of nervousness, and you're not going to be allowed to bring it in. And 4, like I said, preparedness measures. And in 2012, it was really low. This is the number of people that had 1 measure, 1 out of 4. And this is 3, 2, and 1 measure. I mean, 4, excuse me, upside down. 1, 3, 2, and 1, and 4. Very few people were well prepared. The numbers, especially here in this middle bit, started to raise as Bolt became a household name. And we believe these are, and the government believes, that these are really good numbers to look at. And especially because even if they're not interested on pets, you cannot get prepared. You cannot prepare your pet if your family is not prepared. So basically, it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Estamos listos, José. Ya preparamos nuestro plan de emergencia. Tengo mi identificación, mis vacunas y mi jaula de transporte. Tengo planeado hacer un simulacro con mi familia, pero después de la siesta.
Tengo un plan de emergencia que incluya a toda la familia. Para más información, visite nuestros sitios web.
These guys are the Ministry of Agriculture in Costa Rica. They didn't do anything. They just put their logos there. They're very proud of this. Anecdotally, we did this in-house, and you just saw 4 different dogs in there.
And you call him Sando, the English name Sando, or you call him Sunday in Spanish?
In Spanish, it's Trueno.
So is he called in Spanish?
Trueno, yes. That piece is important if you're changing policies at government level in order to bring the public opinion with you. You cannot let them lag behind and hope for a law to take care of everything. Basically, you have to convince the population that they have to do their job, and the government is only there to help with the bits and pieces. And this is the Secretary General of the United Nations in Japan last month, talking at the World Conference for Disaster Risk Reduction. And I'm really proud to tell you that we, after 5 years of lobbying, managed to get a really important line at the UN framework for the next 15 years of risk reduction. And previously to that, you might have heard of the Hyogo Framework for Action. That was the strategy for all governments to prepare to disasters around the world. And their focus was to reduce the number of human deaths, and they succeeded. Then they realized that that wasn't enough, that if you're in the middle of a flood and someone picks you up and puts you in a dry place, and you're poor as a rat, that's not good. It's not going to be able to help you come back to normality. And it usually takes people in that situation more than a decade to recover. Before that decade is over, more disasters, probably smaller ones or bigger ones, are going to hit you, and it's never going to end for you or for the victims. So the idea now is to focus on your vital assets and your surroundings. The negotiations were really, really hard. The Secretary General came by helicopter to deliver the final speech and had to go back a couple of times because the negotiations were not over. But World Animal Protection finished with a series of events. And the good news, the short story, is that out of the big declaration, there is a pillar that talks about investing in disaster risk reduction for resilience. And the most important creed goes like this: strengthen the production of livelihoods and protective assets, including livestock, working animals, tools and seeds. Now, livestock and working animals is huge. It's very little if we are animal lovers, but it's very big for the United Nations. This means 15 years of developing and implementing public policy, and that goes from the top. Governments, for example, mine or Mexico's or India or Brazil, and then developing agencies like USAID, the German developing agencies, all of the ECHO in Europe, which is the development agency for disasters from Europe, and then implementing this. And the fund I mentioned before, the fund we created in Costa Rica, which is now it's a $1 million. It's not big, but it's pretty good for our standards, and we believe it's going to be able to grow. And the beauty of this fund, it gets even better, that we and the government of Costa Rica did not have to put extra funds to it. Every government, or every office for that matter, when we put our budgets together, sometimes it just happens that a percentage of it cannot be spent. Why? Because the conditions were not there, the deal didn't go on, etc. So those are under expenditures. At the government level, you have to return it. Now the Ministry of Agriculture keeps it and makes the fund bigger and bigger every year. And right now they are spending it in a couple of disasters. One is a volcano that erupted and threatened a population of dairy cattle. And another is a drought that is hitting Costa Rica in the north in a big time. One more tool, a strategic tool. Veterinary Emergency Response Units. That is the name of the VERU course for veterinarians and veterinary students. We came to realize that the veterinary profession has to be on our side, because if they do not understand the issues and the problems animals face during disasters, they have to be against us. I mean, if you do not understand something, it's really rarely you will embrace it. You have to oppose it. It's a human characteristic. So we're teaching those veterinary students in Latin America. Right now, we're doing that in India as well, and in Asia. And hopefully, if we did it, the theory here was that if we did it online, it would be great. Now, it would be more rich for us. Disaster risk management. What does that mean? It means that that veterinarians are going to be able to get out there and assess the risk in a farm, assess the risk in a veterinary clinic, and even assess the risk of their clients and their pets. For example, do you have your ID? Well, I could sell it to you, or I could sell the transport box. So for farms, they can charge for this assessment, and also, of course, the recommendations to fix it. And if they end up at the government, even better, because they can pass public policy or the fund I was talking to you about. Climate change adaptation, the second one. 84% of the Mexican territory, that's basically all of it, the Mexican territory. The rest are volcanoes and Cancun probably. 84% is under some form of drought. And the northern part of Mexico is in serious problems. So veterinarians need to know, because they are the ones responsible for the production of milk, eggs, cheese, and everything that comes out of farm animals. They need to know what to do with climate change, how to adapt to it, and how to stop the desertification from creeping in. And we have a lot of experience in this regard, and we thought it was important for the profession to learn. And of course, emergency response. They need to help us when the time comes. And imagine this, guys. Right now, we have a pilot of about 10 veterinary schools in Mexico. And the good they can do to influence the federal government, state government, municipalities, the industry, and the community. We believe that if we invest time on this profession, we're going to be able to reach tons and tons of animals that we can't physically do. The calculations we have are based on calculations by the government of Mexico, is that 3 million animals are at risk in Mexico, be it from drought or floods or earthquakes or volcano eruptions. Mexico has them all. So imagine this happening in Latin America as well. We could have a small army or infantry to help us during disasters, but also they would be able to reduce the exposure or the vulnerability of that many animals. And to close, like Priscilla was saying, we just came from Vanuatu, where a new cyclone called Pam this time, category 5 again. That's the last category in the scale there is, and there's talks about developing a 6th category, given the strength of typhoons and hurricanes coming up our way now. It's funny because in the Caribbean, there used to be about a dozen a year. Now there's been like one probably in the last 2 or 3 years, but really, really strong. So the numbers are changing, but the levels are changing for the worse. And in Vanuatu, we're using the same models we developed for hurricanes, for animals in the Philippines. But I want to talk to you about a small island off the coast of Africa. It's a tiny island. It's the closest piece of land between Africa and Europe to America. They speak Portuguese, and that's one of the reasons we went to help our friends from the African office, because we speak Portuguese a little bit too, and their society is pretty much like Brazilians, but they have 8 islands, most of them made by volcanoes, and one of them turned really nasty on the population and started spewing a lot of lava last year, and moved. Well, first of all, it sadly killed a good number of animals that their owners were not fast enough to move them away from the lava. People tend to wait until the last second. And lava is not the lava you see in Hollywood. It's slow, but it kills you if you stay in their way. And some of them died, but many of them were forced out into parts of the island that had no food, basically. It was just a desert full of rocks. This volcano destroyed. Well, that's just us trying to move the government's cars because they are pieces of junk. But it wasn't such a good idea to have a car with a lousy battery when the fumes can come and take care of you. But thank God we didn't suffer anything. This is the lava destroying three villages that were very prosperous next to the volcano. As you may know, volcanoes are very dangerous, but also very fertile if you want to plant things. And they had great grapes there and wine, and a lot of goats, 20,000 of them actually, and they had to move them out in a haste. So the government asked for our help, and we took our veterinarians to check on the animals. Most of them were weak. They were eating very little, and when they found something, they found plants that are semi-toxic. And what was happening was that there was a subchronic symptoms, but basically the females were aborting a lot because of these plants. And in addition to that, the ash was doing a number on the eyes of most of the animals. You can imagine the ash is usually really tough on your eyes. Anyway, this is the name of the owner of this goats, about 200 of them, Mr. Augusto Spides. And we also found a guy that was left behind. this dog was in the middle of the lava fields and small islands of land that were left untouched, but that were very dangerous places to be. And we were going by with that crappy car you saw before, and I saw this dog, and I want to say that I stopped. I think the car just stalled, and I went back. I went back to see this dog. He looked like he had been an alpha male in the past, but he looked in a really bad place at this time, and really thin. You can see his head is probably don't see it well, but he was really skinny. And when we were able to turn it around, because he looked like in a bad mood, but he wasn't in a bad mood, he was just in pain. He was full of small holes. He'd been in fights with pit bulls because he was ownerless. He didn't know where to go, so he started moving, ended up in someone else's yard, and they took care of him. He was in a lot of pain, with a lot of wounds and things. So our veterinarians helped him. He ate until we stopped feeding him because he was going to get sick with so much food. And as we developed the amount of aid we wanted to give, we wanted to offer the government of Cape Verde, we included Max. Later on, found his name. Including Max as one of the key process indicators for the government. So they knew that they had to feed dogs, cattle, goats, etc. And Max, one of the guys we wanted to see in a happy place afterwards. So here's last week, our veterinarians from Africa, with the same owner of the animals, and with better looking animals, with all the medicines they need, and much fodder for 3 months until other developing agencies and the government promise to kick in with funds. And usually that's what we do. We help the survival of those animals until the government can kick in again and get back on their feet. And here's Max. He's not a very photogenic guy. He doesn't like cameras, but he's in a much better place. And reunited with his owner and a few other dogs that he's friends with. And that was a really good story that we, in every operation, find a Max or a Bolt. And
This is the owner?
yes, no, this is one of our vets. The owner is that, I'll show you in a second. Now, this is another vet that the government appointed to the island called Fogo, by the way, which means fire. Oh, no, I don't have the owner in this invitation. I'm sorry. This is a different operation in Chile that is going on as we speak. That is the reminding of a city in the north of Chile. The curiosity of this disaster is that it is in the middle of the desert of Atacama. You've heard that desert is huge. And all of a sudden, it got semi-destroyed by a flash flood. They don't know where the water came from, but they certainly were not ready for water because they've never seen it there. So 28,000 animals were at risk. A lot of them were taken by the mud flows. You might have seen that on YouTube, houses going by in the middle of the street, carried by the mud flows. And my veterinarians are there working with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Army to move drugs and food to the delivery of the treatment of those animals over there. The local veterinary association volunteered half a dozen vets that are going to be switching. So it's well under operation right now. And the focus here is going to be vaccines, vitamins, salts, and anything that they might need to stand the wet conditions. And what you see here is basically the way the city looks. And I think that is the last photo. I wanted to come in person to thank you, because without you, this wouldn't be possible. Each Max, each Bolt, multiplied by 20,000 in one instance, by 70,000 like we did in Haiti, or by 28,000 here, is thanks to you. We're only the last link in the chain that makes it happen. But without our bosses, our patrons, we couldn't even start, and we couldn't even get on the plane. And we sure appreciate us letting us do this. But those guys you saw there, they do appreciate it more. And that's my talk. And if you have any questions, I'll try to entertain them.
I have a question. Where do you get food from? I mean, if there are thousands of animals that have been starving and the environment is without growth,
Yeah.
how do you bring the food to the animals?
It's never easy. We have a logistical officer that somehow does miracles. Basically, let me explain. In Chile, it's 20 tons of food that we have to put there every month, because it's a lot of fodder that needs to be given to the llamas, the goats, the cattle, and the horses. We have to, in the case of Chile, it's Santiago, and it's not easy, but we did it. The food is arriving tomorrow or the next day. And in the case of Haiti, it wasn't so much food, but it was a lot of medicines, treatments that we brought from the US especially.
But food meaning, for example, bales of hay, a plane full of hay being brought from these thousands of animals? What do you feed them?
Yes, hay, concentrated food, fodder especially. My vets believe that it's important to give enough energy to, they're not going to be fattened, because that's not our job. Our job is to keep them alive until their owners get back on their feet and start their businesses again. But it's never easy. We usually have to strike all kinds of deals for trucks, for planes, or trains to bring in.
If you give them, forgive me for asking
No,
again, but
go ahead.
if you give them special food, prepared food, that means they have to be fed individually. I mean, if normally animals graze or farm animals are being kept, the food is kept in troughs, and they go there. How do you give them specially prepared medicinal food unless you catch each animal and feed it?
Yeah, last week and this week, the veterinarians I mentioned before are training the owners, and the owners are the ones that are going to set up the distribution.
Each animal?
Yes, I mean, it's just, I think you call it trouts or droughts. Yes, that. And it's the way they've been fed. They just don't have anything right now because the owners are bankrupt, and whatever they fed on, especially the grasslands, and that happens very often, by the way. When floods come in, the pastures rot, and it takes about 3 years. It takes about 3 months, excuse me, to grow back, and that's the period we try to cover. So distribution is through the owners of those animals, and if they've been lost, the government Minister of Agriculture will take care of them. But that's not the case. Usually, when an animal has an economic price to it, somebody's going to be interested on getting them back on their feet. And it's again about the government helps us because it's about protecting the livelihoods of those people, and we are interested in helping those animals, especially, obviously, companion and then farm animals.
For example, during that period of having to feed them, they put out troughs. How come that the stronger animals should eat most of it and the others are left behind? How does one secure that each animal gets food?
It's I think it's the interest of the owner to make sure that everybody eats. Like I said, the veterinarians are talking last week and this week, next week, on all of those details, especially not just the food. Remember, we are administering vitamins and salts and stuff. That has a little bit more technicality in it, and that's what they're doing, making sure that everything is not one animal is going to eat more than the rest, or distribution is even. Sorry?
Water is available?
Yes, water is available. It's a strange desert because this flood probably came out of one of those unexpected rains. That the problem, if you go to Lima, you will see this very clearly. Houses in Lima don't have any precautions for rain, and when it rains, it does all kinds of tricks in them because they just don't have any gutters. I mean, it's just the same concept. I mean, yes.
You mentioned the Vera, the veterinary.
The what?
Vero.
The Vero, yes.
Do you have plans to, because I would imagine getting veterinarians organized must be one of the most difficult aspects of your job because you need so many, right? Do you have plans to do it, to offer training online for farmers even and
Yes. Organizing veterinarians and herding cats in the same category. But there is hope for them and for cats too. Veterinarians, the veterinary profession is a make it or break it for us. It's a must. They have to get on board. They have to understand animal welfare and the benefits for even production. And they have to understand risk because the earth is not getting any better on disasters. It's getting worse. And they have to, if they're not doing their job, it's because nobody taught them. So next week, I will be talking to the Latin American Federation of Veterinary Schools. They are really interested on this course, especially because it's online, and especially because they are going to be able to charge for their services. But you have to throw a bone, otherwise they can't just work on pro bono all their lives. And this is a difficult job because it happens usually on weekends and holidays and things like that. Disasters know the calendar, and that's what they do. But I think that this is the future for the veterinary profession. And a few Mexican schools have already said to us, we want to get this course from you and make it into our pensum and our curriculum. Don't know what to do about that, but that sounds really good to us, that they internalize it basically and make it official. That is the end result we want to get. As soon as the veterinary profession does their job, we could close shop here and everywhere because there will be no more job, more work to do for us. But until that day, we have to keep pushing them and pushing governments.
So in an ideal world, you'd be able to identify potential problems, respond to every disaster, and ongoing. I guess, given the infinite number of problems and disasters, and then or just things that you can't expect, how do you determine where you will divert resources?
Yes.
And what do you do when you know you can't?
Yes. If we are spread thin and our teams are everywhere, probably the next one is not going to be able to get our attention. Just physically, we can't do it. But in general, it's up to the government to issue a state of declaration, which means, a declaration of emergency, which means the disaster has overwhelmed their capacities. On the other hand, it depends, our disaster liaison officers, which I mentioned before, tell us when a disaster has hit animals more than humans, because then the governments tend not to pay much attention to it until it becomes an economical situation. So it's a combination, but I think that we try to react to the numbers of animals in danger and the capabilities we have, and then try to leave something behind in addition to the health. Every time we end in an operation, we try to somehow reduce the vulnerability for the next one, because there will be a next one. The only question is when. So if we can improve what they call resilience or preparedness, our job would have been done. Otherwise, we're going to have to keep coming. And with the big ones, we then bring more than one team, like it happened in the Philippines. Our teams went there, the Indian team went there, the Asian team went there, just because there were so many islands in trouble. Yep. Thank you again.
Can I ask you another question? In South America, is it customary for the animals to graze wildly, or like in the United States, they're being fed in the stalls?
I think they do grazing by lots, and they move them around. That is in Chile.
Mhm.
In the Philippines is free grazing, free ranging. In Costa Rica, it's still free ranging for cattle, which is good for them.
Unless, of course, it's all flooded.
Yes, when it's flooded, then they have to start buying
Yeah.
bales, and that is when they need a break for a couple of months, or 3 months, depending on the humidity, until the grass comes
Yes.
back again. Yeah, that's an issue, because when the animals get so thin, you can't do anything with them. They cannot produce, or they cannot sell them.
All right. Thank you so much,
You're welcome.
Gerardo. Thank you so much. I just want to just sort of wrap up the afternoon with just going back to the last subject that Gerardo was talking about, which was the floods in Chile. So this just happened over the last week. It's actually, our teams are working now. They were on the ground, as you can see in the photos, helping the animals, and they have to actually return. Next week they've ordered medicines and vaccinations, deworming of the animals. So our team needs to return back to Chile to help administer the medicine, as well as train the veterinarians, the local veterinarians, to continue the work. So if you're interested in knowing more about this effort and this project, and you would like to know how you can help, reach out to Jerome, Chrissy, or myself after today. And the need is urgent right now, as you can imagine. So, but I wanted to thank Gerardo for coming in, and also for your time this afternoon. Thank you so much.
I need to congratulate you for living in this traffic.
The urban jungle.
That would be
Please,
confusing for a cat.
there's coffee and tea. And
But you should see it once a year, unfortunately. That's one of my pest peeves. The England always bring the elephants. They bring them up and